Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the Large Format Photography Podcast. My name is Simon Forster and I'm joined by Andrew Bartram and Erik Mathy. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, Simon.
And hello, Erik.
Simon, how are you?
Very well. And it's just the three of us because we're going to sort of round off the year. So it's going to be a shorter podcast. We're just going to catch up, talk about things we've been up to lately, and also talk a little bit about the direction of the show, where it's going, and so on and so on. But before we start that, I just want to say thanks to Nick Brandreth for being our guest on the last podcast, and I think he's drawn breath since then. So Nick, it was a pleasure to have you on, and it was great. So let's now head over to the Fens and see what Andrew's been up to.
Oh, right. Well, what have I been up to? I got a new camera, a new handheld Chroma Snapshot camera, so that's fun. And I've been thinking about how to use it, except I haven't got it at the moment. The only bit of it I've currently got is the lens mount, because it's gone back in the post to Steve because it just needs a little bit of adjustment on the springs that hold the ground glass in place. It's a really ingenious design. It has these fiberglass, I call them springs, they're like strips really, but they keep pressure on the little pins that hold the glass in place, and you can lift these springs off really easily and take the glass away, and then you can fit something like a Graphmatic back to it. One of these Graphmatics that takes 6 sheets. So basically anything with that graph lock back, you can fit on the back. And that fitted really well. But the spring pressure was a bit on the loose side. And so it's gone back to be tarted up by Steve, and I'll probably get that back after Christmas.
And you couldn't just do a little extra shim in there and tighten it up?
No, not really. No, you have to see the design to see. Okay. I think you might have to put some new strips in or something. Anyway, it's no big deal. It's gone back, and he'll sort that out. And
so
then
I was going to say that. Oh, actually, I think you were just about to say it, because I was going to say that Graphmatic back that's come to you via Ren Bennells, hasn't it? I believe that's what he calls himself.
Ren or Ben sent me that, and I've been hearing about these things for a long time, and I look at them occasionally on eBay. And so Ben said, well, I'll send you one, play with it and see, and if you like it, we'll work something out. So I got it, and because I don't look at any, there's no instructions, so I'm randomly pulling at things and it's making noises, and then I get it stuck in the open place, and I thought, shit.
Yeah, that's what it does.
So I got on YouTube, and Craig Sheeks, who is a YouTuber, large format YouTuber, he had a video of basically how to operate it, and Craig explains things really well. I think he's a teacher, photography teacher. And so I followed his instructions and got it working, and now I understand it completely. And it's a really clever design. A couple of folks on the Facebook group have said they're prone to leaks and stuff like that. I have no idea, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to load it up and try it out with some portraits. So I won't wait for the Snapshot to come back. I'll try it out with some portraits, and I'll kill 2 birds with one stone. I'll use the 6-sheet Graphmatic and the Elmaron projector lens, the lights.
The 200. It's very pretty.
Yeah, so I think if I can use that, that's f3.6. If I do it on a gloomy day, because you did portraits with your father on this, didn't you? And
yes,
you just used your bowler hat, didn't you? Or
no, that was with my MPP.
You had a shutter, but I reckon 100 ASA on a cloudy day, which would be like 5.6. So
yeah,
I reckon I could get away hand just whizzing a card or something over this wide open on a cloudy day.
Yeah, well, I find also you could shoot RC paper.
I could do that,
and just 1001, boop, done.
Well, I'm looking at a way of killing 2 birds with one stone, so I want to try out the portrait lens. My daughter's home from university, and I've got an idea of taking her out into the fens and finding one of these roads that just disappears. We've got these flat roads, they disappear into the distance. And I've done some shots of her before with a guitar like Johnny Cash with it strung over her back, walking down. And so I'm going to position her in this road and make sure there's no lorries coming. and get my large format camera in the middle of the road. These are fen roads, so they're quite quiet.
Right.
And I'm going to just get with a mask on in the middle of this flat, wild landscape, standing there, with this road going back with the portrait lens. And I'll get to test out the Graphmatic film holder as well. I described what I was going to do with her the other day, and she just looks at me, and gives me a look. What's the matter with you? You fool of a father. So I'm going to be doing that. But I really want to. I don't like to have a camera and not really have any clue what to do with it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pair it with, I know I'm going to pair it with that little Diddy Schneider Anngulon lens that just about covers 4x5 if you don't want too many movements, 90mm f6.8. It's the one that Steve Lloyd uses on his, so I know it works. And
that's the super common little 90mm that's like came with a lot of graphs. Like it's a tiny press
teeny
lens.
weeny. You can leave it on a lot of these cameras that fold up.
Yeah, I used it on the travel one.
Well, right. Well, so the guy I'm buying it from, in fact, I bought one. It came and it was broken, so it went back. So I was chatting with a guy on eBay, a British seller, and he had it listed, and it was mounted on a printed or plastic cone, like the sort of thing you'd put on some kind of homemade camera. And I think it was from a homemade camera. So he's packaged it up to send, but he says he's going to wait till after Christmas because the post is just kind of rubbish at the moment. Doesn't want it to get lost. So I'm going to. The beauty of having that lens is that the spacer bars on this camera. So the way the Snapshot works, you have to tell Steve what kind of lens you're using, and then if you go on to Graham Young, is it Graham Young? Yeah, Graham Young's website. He's got all this list of lenses, common lenses, and different measurements, including the flange focal distance. So that kind of distance from the back of the flange of the lens to the film plane-ish, I guess. And you take that measurement for your lens and deduct 50mm. And that then tells Steve how big a spacer bar you need to set the lens away from the front of the film. It's easier to show on video than it is to describe. But basically, if you have a wide angle lens like a 90 as opposed to my 150, you need much shorter spacer bars. So I need 35mm spacer bars. 35mm spacer bars, that teeny weeny Anngulon lens. Then I've got a super lightweight handheld 4x5 camera. I've got a £10, which I think is far too expensive, cheap Chinese bloody viewfinder, which is a piece of crap, quite frankly. And I think £10 is a cheek for it, but it came from China, and it kind of works if you do that. So that's that. And I'm not interested in any other lens. I've tried my Schneider 150 on it, and of course the camera then becomes a big beast really to handhold, and that lens is quite heavy. So backpacking in the Lake District in the summer, I wish I had a 4x5 camera with me, so it can go, so the Snapshot can travel with me. And I also want to use it. I was thinking today, walking around our village, and a lot of folks I know just walking around, and I'll stop them and says, "Hey, can I take a picture with this camera?" So I'm going to make a series of portraits of villages as well. And I think that's the ideal camera for that. So pairing up with that super light Diddy lens, which will just cover 4x5, maybe a tinge of movement, but not much. But I'm not bothered because I'm just going to be using it, without movements really. I'm not really that interested in movements. And short spacer bars, so it's super portable, super light. And I'm really excited to get it back and get the lens and get them paired up. And then if I pair it up, if someone's desperate to come in, I know. So if I pair it up with this Graphmatic back, if it works properly, it was a bit stiff. So some of the little holders were a bit bent, so I straightened those up, and I've got it going quite well now.
Well, just on there's an interesting photograph in our group by Baz WF. It was posted yesterday, and what's interesting is the fact that not only is it shot with made with the lights lens, the 200 3.6. It was shot on a speed graphic, but I'm just looking at the actual image itself, and there's like a little cutaway on the left-hand side of the image, and that tells me it was also shot with a Graphmatic. because it has this little area that exposes differently. And I think that sometimes it works out. It puts a number into the image.
It puts a number. I think this one that I've got doesn't do that, because looking at the one that Craig had in his video, it had like a little thing with the numbers, and then the daylight shines through, and you can tell. But I'm not sure this one has it. But yeah, in theory, these things you can tell the number gets printed on a bit like a digital back or a digital camera.
But looking at Baz's photo. It's and I've seen this with the one photograph I've taken and with other photos, because ultimately it's a projection lens. It was never meant to take stills images, so therefore it's not optimized for taking stills images. And you look at it, and actually I'm not entirely sure if there's a problem with the back on this Graphmatic, because the edges are a little bit more blurred than I would expect, but there also appears to be a certain amount of field curvature in the shot, which I think is probably less to do with the Graphmatic there, more to do with the lens that's used, because it's effectively been used back to front as well. But more to the point, though, what draws me to this is that you can actually see that this has not been taken with a conventional film camera lens. It's not particularly well corrected. Yet what it does do, it does a great job of isolating the main person in this, and there's a house behind, and the way that the focus shifts from the person that is beautifully in focus, and there's tons of contrast in this, and there's a couple of like little twigs and things that are framing the image at the top, which are on the same focal plane. But the way that it actually graduates into the outer focus area, there is a curvature to it as an organic way of it doing that, and I think it just draws your eye to the center. And that's why I particularly like these non-standard, not designed for purpose lenses, such as that light lens.
Who am I looking for in the group?
Baz WF. That's BAZ or Z for our American listeners.
BAZ. Right. WF. Okay.
WF. Yeah.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Well, look, what drew me to Pinhole is exactly what's beginning to draw me to these sort of odd lenses. I'm not really interested in perfection. You're just looking for something that's got a different look to it, and something that isn't sharp all over, which is why I love my Holger, because it's pin sharp in the middle and not elsewhere. It's why I love Pinhole, because that's just kind of not sharp anywhere at all.
Right.
And it's just lovely to have these different tools to go to, and old lenses or projector lenses give you that kind of option, don't they?
All lenses that Erik makes.
All the lenses that Erik makes. Yeah, but I'm not skillful enough to do that, because you have to do maths and things, don't you?
Very basic math. Or some people don't even do math. They just like throw things together and see what it does. Yeah. Or you can be Jason Lane and like have massive spreadsheets and calculators and software.
I see that. Yeah, he's got frame number 1 on that, so he was using a Graphmatic back, wasn't he? And the American flag in the background, which I love, because I love the American flag in pictures. I think it's just very iconic and sends all sorts of messages depending on who the audience is. It's a bit like that conversation we had with Wayne, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. It's definitely...
Well, that might have been a conversation we had off air, actually.
Yeah, it elicits responses, that's for sure. The American flag.
And not always the ones that he intends, but that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just one more thing with the Graphmatic back, Andrew, is I used a Graphmatic back relatively recently, and before I used it, I just decided to try and learn how to use it quickly. And I pretend, if I was a press photographer, how would a press photographer with lots of things going on use it? And I found it to be really useful. Because you start to build a level of muscle memory that's going in there, because it's very easy if you don't use it very often, or you're thinking, now how did they do that on the video?
Do I press that now or just pull it?
Exactly. I've now forgotten. I would have to go through the whole thing again to memorize how to do it, because it's very easy to really mess up.
It is.
So try and get it to get muscle memory going in there, so you can just do it without thinking. If you have to think about it, chances are you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that's
yeah. Really just like slam it in there, and all of a sudden, like the film is folded and like things.
Well, that's exactly what I did when I got it. I just started pulling things, and then it kind of just was in a big stuck mess. I thought I'd broken it, to be honest, but I hadn't. It was fine. I thought, how difficult can it be? And I thought, actually, yeah, it is quite difficult.
Those are famous last words every time.
And then I read some written instructions on how to operate it, and I was even more confused. So I'm so glad I found Craig's tutorial. It was very calmly described, and I could stop it, and you can just practice, can't you, as you go along. So that's the beauty of YouTube. So yeah, so I've been thinking new camera, new project, new toys. Keen to try out the projector lens, keen to try out the Snapshot when it comes back, and when I eventually get that lens I want to use with it. All good. And then I'm enlarging the darkroom. That's the job for as I enter a period of semi-retirement next year. I'm making the enlarger. Have I mentioned that? I make the enlarger. I make the darkroom bigger. So I'm knocking back a wall. I'm knocking back a wall about 2 meters back.
What are you adding?
Well, I'm going to make more space so I can do workshops, and then I can get the other thing I was gifted recently was that Jobo CPE 2. So I'm going to keep that. At the moment, I keep moving it backwards and forwards into the utility room, and I've just developed my first roll of color film in it, and I was so impressed with it, I have to say.
That thing is ridiculous. I've
got a print drum up there.
Yeah, dude, as a score, that thing is a ridiculous score. They're really, really expensive to buy, and they're really, really nice.
And I've been impressed so far with it. And I'll tell you what I've also been impressed with is the Jobo reels. So I've used Patterson reels pretty much all my photographic life, and stainless steel Hughes reels. And the stainless steel I love, but they can be tricky. Mm-hmm. I'd never had any experience with the Jobo tanks until I got this device. And so it came with a 1500 series Jobo tank for folks who know about these things, and basically that takes the 35 and 120 reels, but the tank systems are expandable. So I've got on order something called a 1530 extender, so you just take these things, just come apart, and it makes it longer, and because you're using the continuous agitation round back, and it turns direction every 3 minutes, I'm not going to have any fears about putting multiple reels in that. Whereas I get a bit worried if I'm inverting a Patterson tank and I've got like 6 reels in it, becomes very unwieldy, And also, I know Jeff Perry makes his insert to fit that 1500 series tank to take 4x5 as well. I don't really want to use it for that, to be honest, but I might use it for 4x5 color if I ever get into that, because this Jobo system lends.
Or 4x5 chrome. If you can,
color, because I want to start color printing. You see, that's my next project. Now I've got this Jobo thing. I've been researching RA4 printing, and it doesn't. How hard can it be? It doesn't. I'm trying to get my head around the color triangle, and and all that nonsense,
How do you develop RA4 paper at home?
In RA4 chemicals, I have to get a kit from Techno or Analog Wonderland or somewhere.
Because what I'm used to. And there's probably less than 6 of these machines still in existence. But in college at RIT, digital didn't exist yet. We had a huge color paper processor in the color darkroom that could take
You just put your paper in at one end, and there's all these rollers that takes you through the different systems, and it pops out the other end. Yeah, exactly. I've worked with one of those years ago.
And it's massive. I was recently talking to one of my old professors, Dan Larkin. And he still teaches traditional color printing, and that machine is still there. And he thinks it's the only one east of the Mississippi still running in a college. It's still sort of like the parts are super rare. You have to scavenge them from ones that are no longer in use. And here in San Francisco, at a place called Rayco, which sadly closed down a couple of years ago, Rayco had the only one of those machines west of the Mississippi in an open photo space. They're just so rare, and they have to be run constantly. They need to be run, as with all automated color processing machines. They need to be run constantly, otherwise, everything starts to fall apart internally, and the chemicals go bad, and everything goes to crap. So you can't never leave them idle. But they're the commercial machines to do what you're talking about are just getting so rare, and it's sad because like you could print poster size prints on these things. I mean, they're huge, and really cool. Yeah. So it's interesting that you can. I never thought about doing it at home, basically, because
I've never.
Color is just the big, massive machine.
Well, Fuji make the paper. Fuji make this crystal paper.
Oh yeah,
it doesn't seem too expensive. It was like a box of 100 8x10 for 30 or 40 quid or something. And pound of your English pound note.
You guys have the best words. I'm just saying.
And you've thrown me now. And so I need to get the RA4 chemicals. But there's loads of, again, YouTube tutorials, you know.
Are they still making that paper actively? That RA4 paper?
Well, it seems to be readily available. You know what Fuji's like? I was surprised to see it still available because Fuji are just, you know.
Yeah, they're really weird.
There's no market for it. It'll go, won't it? The drop of a hat.
Like they'll make it for as long as, essentially it feels like they'll make it for as long as the machines that produce it can be kept running without falling apart, right? So once it falls below a certain volume, like you said, then the machines start to fall apart because they're not kept up.
Maybe there's still enough commercial use for it to keep it viable. I don't know. So I don't know, folks out there who do color printing, what my options are for paper these days. People listening, there must be some of you who do color work in darkroom. So I'm very new to this. I don't know anything about it really.
Right.
It's just that I saw someone using the Fuji paper. Do you know, Simon, color paper?
No.
It seems
Reiko.
like,
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, looking at like Freestyle or the other ones, the only papers I see are Fuji Color Crystal.
Yeah, I think so. Reiko, did they? I've got a little book somewhere in the cupboard with all darkroom formulary in it, and I'm sure that's Reiko. Did they used to do all that stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure they. So it was a
name that's familiar to me from the.
Oh yeah, it's a photo space, a massive photo space, formerly massive photo space that had everything from community printing darkroom to a massive portrait studio to a digital lab upstairs where you could rent workstations with flatbed to drum scanners, a huge digital printer, a color darkroom again with the RA4 paper processor, at least two, maybe three traditional print spaces with like UV light tables and that sort of stuff. Two darkrooms that had massive printers that could do 8x10 or larger negatives, and you could project onto the wall and essentially do just huge poster prints. They had my favorite place I lived in that room was a sheet film development room that was just nothing. You could close the door and do nothing but sheet film in there. And a gallery. That's where Ann Jastrup, who I wouldn't mind having coming on, was the gallery director there for years. And also the front half was just a gallery that was massive.
A space like that, they must exist still where you can just go and hang out. I'm sure they do in America. I've seen places where you can just go and hang out. You can buy film, you can chat, you can drink coffee, you can maybe do a bit of darkroom work. There must be a gap in the market for it.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like Reiko went under, and there really isn't a space like that in the Bay Area anymore. I mean, EBCO, which is the East Bay Photo Cooperative, which is a little nonprofit group that I'm a founding member of, are trying to do fundraising and whatnot in order to rent and build a community space like that to replace and fill the vacuum that Reiko's left behind. But it's, real estate. It's not cheap to do at all. Like there's been nothing to replace that in the San Francisco Bay Area, sadly, which is unfortunate because you could walk in there and get access just walking in to not only an incredible variety of facilities, but also people, like working photographers of some renown who are just in there printing and doing things and hanging out or shooting. And so the folks you could cross paths with just walking into Reiko was like a who's who of Bay Area and American photographic talent. It was
are those folks still held together, bound together by the internet?
Yeah. I mean, some of them have gravitated to EBCO. Some of them are still active through like the Reiko Facebook group.
Okay.
And Jastreb is like a hub of that. So her moving to the Carmel photography, the CPA, aka the house that Weston built, a lot of them have gravitated to her events, but that's a little bit further south. It's like an hour and a half drive from San Francisco, so you have to be a little bit more dedicated. So yeah, and a lot of the galleries in San Francisco have closed down too. Unfortunately, there was one building and one floor that had like 3 or 4 different photo galleries. So on any given Friday night, you could go just to this one building and go to like 3 photo gallery openings on one floor. It was like this little nook of really high-end photography galleries, and those are all gone, sadly. But you could see on any given like Friday night, everything from like Weston's and Ansel Adams and Imogen Cunningham, like original genuine prints, to like Carol, I think your name's Carol Bernstein, who's actually somebody we should have on the show. But I don't think she's mostly medium format. All sorts of people. So it was a really fun, and now I think sadly gone, scene in San Francisco.
Well, in Stoke-on-Trent, in England, you have the 6 Towns Darkroom.
We do, and it's you know what, it is just like that place that Eric was saying, just like it.
Just not sunny, anytime ever.
Yeah.
Mind you, it's cold. San Francisco's cold. It's the only place when I was in the States I had to put my jumper on. It's freezing.
For the American listeners, what is a jumper?
A sweater.
Okay,
Pullover.
Just checking.
Pullover.
Because what comes to mind to me is like some sort of warm, fuzzy onesie, and so, or something you'd put a baby in. So I just wanted to make
that's a jumpsuit.
Right. So okay, a sweater. Okay.
What do you call them sweaters? Do you? Sometimes we call them sweaters, I guess, because we're kind of influenced by American programs now.
Yeah,
we try and resist. I'm a member of the Jumper Resistance Organization.
The JRO.
Fight against the infiltration of American jargon in woolen knitwear.
In jumper wear.
So the 6 Towns Darkroom, Simon. You could make. Is that? I've not been, so I don't know. Is it in its own little building? Tell us about the 6 Towns Darkroom and what your hope and aspirations are for it.
Well, it's a shared use building, and say shared. It's shared between effectively the darkroom people and the digital people, we tend to use different sides of the street and different sides of and not talk to them. And I think that said, that there are 2 people in our darkroom group that would that do have things to do with the digital group, but you know. But it's like a lot of things. It just doesn't. Nothing's actually happening there at the moment because of all the COVID restrictions and things like that. But when it does, it's just we call it a darkroom club. It's not a community darkroom because that implies somebody being there in a more commercial basis. It's not a commercial basis at all. So it's a case of we just invite people and like people that want to do things in a traditional darkroom. And we got 3 or 4 enlargers, one of which will do 7x5. Thank you, Stephen Segersby. We've got loads of chemicals, which we chip in every week, and we've got lots of old paper, which is always good because that means that you can just try stuff out, and it just does not matter when you make a mistake, which is in my case. Almost every single print I've ever made has been a mistake, but it's good to be able to fail. Because you're spending good money on good stuff, then you're going to be a little bit more resistant. But at some point, you have to move away from using the expired rubbish stuff and actually use proper paper and such. And I haven't actually made that leap yet. But at some point, when I feel I've reached a level of competency, then I'll do that. But the problem is, I haven't done anything in there now for probably close to 10 weeks, 3 months. Since I've actually done anything in there. So I've pretty much forgotten what little I already knew, which is a real shame, really.
Yeah, because it opened up after lockdown 1, didn't it, over here for a time?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean we actually had a Zoom meeting only last week, just as a bit of a touch base between a few of us, which was nice. But at the end of the day, it's just not the same when you can just get around a table, eat a selection of biscuits, which is the main reason why we go.
Cookies.
No biscuits.
Yeah, I know. I'm just pro American.
No, I know. I'm just not going along with that.
Put gravy over them. Can you imagine it?
Yeah. Well, cookies are meant to be. I'm not anti-cookie by any stretch of the imagination. They should be chewy in the centre and a bit crispy around the edges. Am I correct in that, Eric?
I mean, here a cookie can be crisp all the way through, or chewy in the center, crisp around the edges. I mean, a cookie is an all-encompassing.
Oh dear, so he's wrong.
Thing.
Okay.
You're describing a brownie, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, it's sort of
chewy on the inside.
A brownie depends on the thickness and squareness.
Yeah.
Okay, no jokes. Right. One of the things, Simon, that we've done with EBCO to sort of maintain community is, like a monthly work show, right? Where there's a or sometimes every other week, depending on the volume, but where you might have a different photographer or moderator come on and say, hey, I want to do let's do a work review. I'll take 5 photographers. We'll get on a Zoom meeting. Everybody can come in, and one by one, the photographers go through and show work, recent work or old work on a particular topic. It could be portraits. It could be new projects. It could be whatever, landscapes. And then there's a different moderator every time who typically has some level of expertise with that, or just the willingness to host and play MC. And then, you might get anywhere from 10 to 15 to 20 people who aren't showing, who are just coming on to look at work, see the presentation, and then give feedback to the photographer on the work that they're doing. And it's been that sort of thing has been really fun and really valuable way to keep that photographic community together. It's not as much fun as getting around a table and throwing prints down and having people look around and pick them up and drink together, of course, and eat snacks and manhandle people's prints. But it's been useful and it's been fun, and it's kept the community going. In some ways, it's actually expanded those work reviews because geographically, not everybody could go to someone's house in Berkeley to look at work around the table, but they can pop on Zoom and kind of go through it that way. So it could be argued that it's expanded the community a little bit.
I think a coming together, if you make prints either in the darkroom or on an inkjet printer or whatever, the ability to come together around a table with some beer and coffee or snacks and just be really open with each other about your print, in a super positive, critical way, not
right,
because there's going to be people at all sorts of levels, aren't there? And the fact that you've actually managed to make a print in the first place is a huge deal,
Right.
A huge deal. And that's to be really commended, but to be able to feed off each other's work, I haven't really, I used to be in the camera club scene years ago, and I hated it really. Looking back on it, I realized how much I hated it because it was all very sort of adversarial and competitions, and there was none of that sort of. It wasn't a very relaxed atmosphere. But to be able to set up, to live in a city, I guess you need to live in a city. Really, it's no point where I live because there's only me. To be able to meet up and have print discussions or something somewhere. That would be a fabulous thing to do.
Yeah,
particularly if you had a darkroom space on the same site.
Yep, absolutely.
Because that's what those groups, Ansel Adams and Imogen Cunningham and the Westerns, they'd all get together, wouldn't they? And and look at prints and talk about each other's work and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Ansel would tinkle the ivories on his piano.
I think the original F-64 house is in Oakland. I can't remember the address, but you can still meander by there and see it. Anyway, that's what I've been up to.
Okay. I was going to say we're now halfway through this show.
I blame Eric. He just
What did I do? I've been relatively quiet.
Yeah.
I'm just nodding my head. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, up to fun.
Is that all it takes?
I think for the first thing I actually want to say is to do shout outs for my shout outs for this week, because I will forget otherwise, and they've just come into my head. I want to direct people to Sunny 16 Presents, which is a spin-off of the Sunny 16 podcast, where it's largely listener generated content and a few other more specialist photography related things on there. And there's the one that went out on the 15th of November, which is part of the On Location I don't know what it is, name of the type of podcast it is, and it's entitled Cathanol with Christian Strauss and Jonathan Becker, and it's a 45-minute listen, and it's if anybody's got any interest in Cathanol, and I've been longing to do Cathanol now since we had Wayne Setzer on the show, and right. I still haven't done it, but you'd listen to that podcast because they go through the history of it, and then the use of it, and then they do a frequently asked questions section at the end of it, and they cover a huge area, and they do it really well. And there are some aspects of using Cathanol which are really exciting to me, especially the kind that I can't remember if it was.
Is it just me who's lost Simon?
No. He turned voice of Sauron.
He turned into a Dalek, and then
yeah.
All I got good now reference. Is his eye of Sauron looking at me.
Good reference, by the way. I like the Dalek reference.
He's gone now.
He's gone. I
don't know what that means. The show just collapses in a heap now. We've lost the host.
That's true, because he was recording.
Is he still recording? How does that work?
I'm assuming he was recording. Well, no, that's a good question. It does say it's recording up there. It's recording.
It still said it was still recording.
Yeah, cool.
Am I back?
You are.
Are you?
Yeah, that's good. So where was I up to? 7 minutes.
You were talking about Cathanol and in
7
particular
minutes.
What appealed to you or something?
Yeah. So there's one particular formulation of this Cathanol where almost every kind of film you can think about takes about 7 minutes to develop.
Really?
Yeah, and which obviously therefore leads itself to the ability to use different kinds of film in the same development tank, which I find that is always a great thing.
But is it just sort of generalist? Like it's okay.
Well,
for a bunch of them.
Well, listen to the show, because they run through a whole list of different films that work particularly well with Cathanol, and it seems like the films with the higher silver content seem to work particularly well, and films that sometimes need they do better with a proprietary developer, like with the Fomadon, Fomaplan films, the LQN and all that kind of stuff. Those seem to do particularly well in Cathanol as well. So, I mean, that always appeals to me anyway, because if I do sometimes mix and match my film and then take incredibly bad records and then forget what on earth I've got in my dark slides, forget which way I've actually turned the dark slides, if I did do that the right way, did I do it the wrong way, which is the right way to turn it with the black side out and the silver side out, I just forget. And which ultimately means I end up, okay, I need to stand develop this, because that's the only way I know that we'll develop everything into an hour, and everything more or less works. Well, now I can do this in 7 minutes with and also develop unexposed sheets in exactly the same way.
I'll give it a listen, because I do have stacks of old coffee and sodium carbonate and bromide and bits and pieces and vitamin C powder in the cupboard, and I've played around with the same formula that Wayne uses, which is Cathanol CL. All I've done is downloaded the Cathanol cookbook, which is just a PDF thing you can download, and that's pretty useful. But Cathanol CL is one that's designed for stand or semi-stand, and I've had some good results. Some that would just seem to be really dense, and I can't work it out. And then the last lot I did, God knows what I did, because everything came out blank. I mean, just blank. And so I thought, and I put some film in there that I was really precious about as well, and I thought it would be fine. And I've just got, and I can't work out why it was just blank. It was almost like I hadn't exposed the sheets at all. And I thought, surely I have.
Did you forget to add like something that creates an active developer? That's usually it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
My note taking is normally pretty good, unlike Simon. I mean, I write everything down. Every film I expose, I give a reference number, and I'm up to A1047.
Damn.
Which is, since I moved into this house, I started the A system. And I write that in a book, and then when I'm making a print from that negative, I reference it. And when I scan anything, I put that reference number on, as a tag or something. And but also I put, once I've settled on a time that I like for a particular film and developer, I just punch it into that big developer app thing, on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that ID11 1-to-1 for HP5 works for me at 9.5 minutes, whereas if you look at Ilford's recommended times, it's something like 13, for example. But I'm not saying that everybody should go out there and develop it to 9.5 minutes, because it may not suit the way you work.
Yeah.
But yeah, keep notes, boys.
Yeah, you're past me.
But yeah, that does sound like people are always on the search, aren't they, for the magic bullet? And that sounds, Caffeinol in many ways is getting close to a magic bullet, because it has that compensating effect. It certainly does in a stand form, But yeah, I'll give that a listen, Simon. Particularly if it's only 45 minutes, and I've got a bit more time on my hands now.
Yeah, you do.
I've got a load of those to listen to. I'm way behind in all sorts of podcast listening.
Yeah, well worth it. I'll be pretty brief with the rest of the stuff, because we haven't even got to Eric yet. And we've got 2 emails, and we were going to have a full discussion about the direction of the podcast, and we have 20 minutes now. So I get the feeling something's got to give. Things that I've been up to, I've been just making things. And in particular things like lens boards, because I'm really excited the fact that I've now got a new camera, got a Carbon Adventurer, so I can make new lens boards for a new camera. And, for my orange or KTM or Tango Adventurer.
The Orange Crush, the creamsicle. We got to get a better name.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's my sports camera anyway. And I've got my latest lens board that I've made is for a Rathenoa 62.5/300, which is a 300mm 4.8 projection lens. I think It's an old projection lens. And I had to build an extension into the lens board because there's.
Wasn't it wider than the lens board?
No. That's a bit. See, this is the thing, because I've got I've got 3 Aeroectars, but there are issues with those, because they're fantastic things, but they're big and they're heavy, and this is a lightweight camera. And you can put one on there, but ultimately the look that you get with an Aeroectar, in many cases you can get with projection lenses, as we've talked about many times, and Dave Shrimpton does that. How he's moved from using an Aeroectar to using Buell projection lenses and getting effectively the same kind of result, but there's no weight penalty because they're much lighter. The only thing is you're stuck with the aperture that you get, unless you can come up with a clever way of creating an aperture. But I do like to use that one. So I've made that lens board, and it's cool. And then the other thing that I've done, and I did talk about this on the podcast, not sure if it was the last time or the time before, but I picked up a Kodak Ektar 7.5-inch 4.5 large format lens.
Ooh, very nice.
Which is equivalent to about 190 mil for 4.5. And more to the point, I've now successfully adapted it to my Hasselblad 500.
It's got like a nose, it's like Pinocchio.
It's ridiculous.
It's I say this with affection.
Yes.
It's dumb. It's so dumb.
It is.
It's ludicrous. It's like your forearm coming out of sort of the Hasselblad, and this is this giant brown canvas disc, lens disc. It's awesome.
You enjoy that? Oh, I'm not going to even say it.
Yeah.
Mine when Eric did that.
Yeah, what was it? Like a baby holding a tennis ball. I think.
That's a nice way to put it.
Yeah, and what's it in one of the groups? Somebody had I posted it across the entire internet, and somebody had it nearly broke the Hasselblad group, by the way. Actually, no, they were okay about it. I wasn't sure how they would react, but they were okay with it. Somebody did a picture of Ghostbusters and those things about crossing the streams. So it looks like you could capture ghosts with it. So, but it works, and I will at least take one shot with it, and then retire it forever, maybe. So, yeah. But yeah.
So it seems to me that if you're going to make all these things and do all these things, there's got to be a purpose to it. Or is making it the journey, is that enough of a purpose for you?
Oh, now we're in serious. We have 15 minutes.
He and I started this conversation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough. I mean, at the moment, we've got a situation at the moment where it's actually very difficult to actually go out and do whatever you like photographically. It's certainly in the UK at the moment, and it's just getting absolutely nuts over here at the moment. So really going out and taking pictures is not a straightforward thing. I'm saying that as an excuse very conveniently. The other side to this is my business is heading far more over towards design and 3D printing of photographic accessories, and I'm absolutely loving it. And it's got to be said. I mean, I've always been in love with cameras and gear as well. Photography has always been a twofold interest. I've always been interested in photography, taking pictures, and I've also been interested in the equipment that I use. And now I've actually got to a point for the first time in my life where I'm actually able to design and build things that I can think about. I mean, earlier on we were just chatting about a pretty wacky pinhole camera design that I want to make, and if it wasn't for these newfound skills of the last 12 months, that's as long as I've been doing it, I would never have been having a conversation about building a pinhole camera, and it is something that really interests me. So I'm not about to give up photography by any stretch of the imagination, but I really, really do get a kick out of designing and building things for cameras.
Okay, well, I think you just answered the question.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong answer to it.
Well, partially, because we can definitely, that's a subject that can definitely be delved into with great depth.
It makes him happy.
At a later date. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the important thing. I mean, in the end, the person you have to please first and foremost is yourself, be it with what you're building or what you're shooting, right? And if you're not, then you can't present that to anybody else because it doesn't carry.
Do you think you might settle down into using your Chroma, what's it called? The
Tango Adventurer.
Your Tango Adventurer. So you've been adapting things to go on it and building lens boards and. Are you excited to get out to use it and make some images and go in the dark?
Yes, I am. I really am looking forward to going out, and I was planning on meeting somebody further up in the north of England to take in the Chroma with me, and also dropping in on Steve and borrowing his electronic shutter that he's developing. Because it tops out at 60th of a second. I don't know if he can make that go any quicker than that. But the fact that it allows the use of barrel lenses on a conventional camera with a shutter speed that's higher than you can stick your hand over the front of the lens is very exciting. And secondly, the other good thing about it, in many cases it's a bad thing, but in the case of in our world, I think it's a good thing that the actual shutter system effectively has a 2-stop ND filter permanently in there, which when I'm using a projection lens with a maximum of the smallest it gets is 3.6 or sometimes faster. You need all the help you can get if you've got too much light.
Yeah. So is that the same? When I went, in order to avoid the extortionate postage that Chroma charges on flat rate to send these cameras around. Maybe it's not extortionate, I don't know. But anyway, I'm being a tightwad. I was up in the northwest. And I said to Steve, I'll call into your workshop and pick up my Snapshot camera. Well, that was fun and games. Finding this stupid place where he works is was mind-boggling. Then you have to park on double yellow lines. Do you know what double yellow lines are, Eric?
Yeah.
He didn't seem bothered. He did say
someplace you're not allowed to park is what I'm just going to assume.
Yeah,
we should be grateful that he does actually allow free collection.
Yeah, he didn't charge me for going to collect, but he very quickly, and I was worried that either my car was going to get keyed or the wheels were going to be stolen, because I was in the Wirral, up the Wirral. I was right up the Wirral, I tell you. I was near Port Sunlight. That might be the classy area, but it didn't seem too classy where his workshop's actually done. And so I had the car outside, and I was on the double yellow line, so I was kind of anxious, and he was showing me things, and I said, yeah. And he gave me the camera, and I said, lovely, and I should have asked him more questions about it. And then he showed me the barrel lens shutter that he's working on, which seemed to be there was nothing sliding up and down. I didn't quite understand how it worked. It seemed to change from
magic.
It was like a magic. It just went from dark to clear. It just suddenly cleared. And I thought it's probably like witchcraft.
It's probably a 2-blade shutter. They're pretty. There's an old design where, like, one of the first ones that had.
No, Eric. No. It's magic.
And he's given it magic. Apparently, he was going to get rid of that design because he's going to do a Kickstarter on this at some point, and he was going to bin that design. But a certain Simon Forster convinced him not to. Is that right? Did I pick that up? I was rushing out the door, fighting off all the scallies who are about to key my car.
I just asked him, what's going on with it, and he sort of dismissed it and goes, "Oh, it's just got too many compromises. It's got 2 stops so that you lose of light, and it only goes up to 60th of a second." And I was saying, we're large format photographers. Come on, we do compromises. We love compromise. We take better photos when we can't do things. So make it, or at least finish the damn thing off, and I'll go out and test it.
Yes, what he showed me looked great. I thought, well, put it on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
I don't know. Look good.
I'll test it. I mean, Jesus. I mean, I'm dealing with that stuff all the time.
Well, Eric, he does free collection for you.
Yeah, I'll be right over. I'll hang with the scallies outside of a shop.
I need to move this on very quickly as well, because I need to say we need to say thank you to what happened a week or so ago, because we had, Eric and I had a bit of a get together with a lot of really interesting people.
Lovely people.
Yes, and it was the large format photography podcast Virtual Gathering 2. And we had 2 guest speakers. We had Joby, who was. I'm gonna call you out, Andrew. Andrew is giving me finger gestures at the moment for some reason. I don't know if that had anything to do with the introduction I gave as to why Andrew wasn't actually with the virtual gathering or not. I do not know. So we had Joby doing, or otherwise known as Joseph Brunges, doing a talk on false perspective and macro photography with large format. And then we had the return of Jim Fitzgerald, who was with us I think on the previous show. And that show is out only on our YouTube channel. So you can see that in all its glory. I mean, it's got to be said, if you weren't there, then watching something back like that is not quite the same as when you're actually there live. So when we do this again, please come along, because it's just brilliant. It's just really, really good fun when you're actually there, and you can chip in and you can alter the events as they go along. So
and we'll be doing another one.
We will. We're having a special Hollywood get together soon, aren't we, Eric?
Yeah, January 2nd.
That's it.
Indeed.
I did know about that. I'd forgotten though.
Yeah. So for the people in the audience,
I don't think I've got a hot date that date.
Yeah. Well, then we'll introduce you virtually again, and probably this time pipe in some Barry White.
I just had this vision of me not being there, and then I thought you might have planned it. I haven't listened to I listened to the beginning and thought, I can't watch it.
Switched off.
Every time my name was mentioned, I thought you'd throw in a bit of, pause, cut in a bit of Barry White music, but then I realised Simon wasn't that skillful, so he couldn't possibly do it.
We should next time. Yeah.
Not with video editing. So Eric, we have 7 minutes of this podcast left. Tell us about the next extravaganza.
Well, I don't know what people do or don't know, but for those of you who have caught the podcast, which sucked me into the inviting arms of this wonderful community, which isn't incestuous at all, according to Ethan. It's just community. But anyways, a couple of years ago, I did a bicycle ride from San Francisco to Tucson with a handmade camera lens and a speed graphic as a documentary piece, talking to folks, mostly around the topic of immigration in the United States. And Adobe Create came along and shot what ended up becoming a full-length documentary feature on the project. It hasn't been released publicly. It premiered in the San Francisco Independent Documentary Film Festival this year, but it hasn't been put into distribution channels anywhere. So Adobe Create is allowing me to stream it on January 2nd inside the large format photography podcast group. And so I will stream it there and take questions after. And I'll see if I can sweet talk Dan, who's the director, or some of the crew into coming along too, and maybe taking some questions afterwards. But it'll be the only real place at this point in time you can see it.
So it'll be like a super exclusive Facebook Live, but just for... You have to be a group member? How does it?
Yes.
How do you have to sign up for it, or can you just drop in, or how does it work?
I'm just going to do, sort of like Ethan's been doing, like with his live, like I'm going to hang out and do things. I'm going to stream the movie live to the large format group.
But then to be able to ask questions as well.
Yeah. I'll probably more than likely just do it as, I think we'll have to figure that out. I can stream it live to the group. We're going to get into technical details, but we'll figure it out. Maybe we'll do a Zoom call.
You've only got 5 minutes left. Don't worry about it now.
So we'll figure those details out. But yeah, that's the next group gathering.
No, that's going to be good. And I get the feeling we need to start wrapping up now, don't we?
Yeah. Although I would like to definitely throw out there that like the conversation of diversity and like how do we get different guests, and not just different guests, but people of color and whatnot is a topic we should definitely tackle early next year.
I was going to say, Eric, I think that there were a lot of things that we were planning on saying, plus we never even got to find out really what you've been up to. So I'm thinking, and this is only a short show as well, and I think that we probably, our next one where we have a get together will probably be a similar kind of this, and we'll do those emails, and I think we'll talk about the future of the show in a little bit more detail. We've run out of time to do that now, so let's flesh those ideas out a little bit more next time.
For sure.
Cool. Yeah. Okay, so a thing that I need to do, because I didn't do this last time, I'm going to do this as quickly as I can, and that's to say thank you to those people that have donated to us. And I think where we're up to is Juan. That was on the 20th of November. And it says, a coffee to each of the hosts. Just got my first 10 by 15 centimeter film, which is as close to ultra large format as I've ever been, i.e. not very.
Fantastic.
Then we got Jeremy North. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Christopher J. May. Thank you very much, Christopher J. May. And then finally, Dan Pratt. 3 coffees, 1 for Andrew and 2 for Simon. Oh.
Wow.
And who, if he chooses, may share one of them with the interloper, Eric.
That's better. That's better than saying the Eric Matthews show and those other 2, or whatever we had last time.
The interloper, the American invader.
And it says, thank you, Andrew, for not making any comments about my surname.
Who was this again, sorry?
That'll be Dan Pratt.
Oh. There's always time, Dan.
Oh, there you go. So well done. You've stayed with that. Okay, so Andrew, have you got any shout outs?
No.
Eric, shout outs?
Well, shout out to the 2 of you and to our community. This has been if this is technically our wrap up, our last one of the year, it's been a great bonus to what has otherwise been a really weird year. This has been a good weird bonus to an otherwise bad weird year.
Yeah. And we've done more shows this year than we've ever done before. Because we have only ever promised to do 20 shows in a year, and we blasted through that largely because of you, Eric, making us make more shows.
I'm just back behind there.
Me and Simon were hunkering down. We were both in our own little Christmas bubbles, where I was kind of ignoring the world, getting ready to just wait for the new year, and suddenly there you are, like some mad keen Easter bunny, hopping up and down, saying, "Make another show."
Yeah,
yeah. And although we never actually managed to do that literal gathering in the forest as we planned, we have done 2 virtual gatherings, which have both been fantastic, and they will continue next year.
We'll do a gathering in the forest. So whether things will moved on enough in the UK with vaccines, I don't know next year, but maybe it's a 2022 thing. The new forest gathering, like we planned, Simon.
Forest of Dean.
All right, and there as well.
Yeah,
one of those forests.
It made it sound like the nude forest rather than the new forest.
Yeah, Forest of Dean. Sorry,
yes, that's it. So, okay, so and actually, I'll go to Eric. Eric, outside of this podcast, how can people keep up with the wonderful things that you do?
Oh, God. Well, I haven't sadly been posting that much, but you can always Instagram is probably the best place. ErikHmathy.
Excellent. And Andrew, how about yourself?
Yeah, Instagram, Twitter as Warboy Snapper, and then in the large format photography podcast Facebook group where I admit and deny entry.
And if somebody wants to have an email read out on the show, what's the best way for them to do that, Andrew?
They should send an email to Simon, and Eric will read it out.
Yes.
And they should send an email to large format photography podcast at gmail.com.
That's the one. Well done.
I just want to put that in. It should say there, shouldn't it?
Sort of.
Large format photography podcast at gmail.com.
That's it. And we have a YouTube channel as well, don't we, Andrew?
Do we?
Yes, we do, because that's where you watched the LFPP gathering. Right. So if you just search for Large Format Photography Podcast.
I'll follow it.
Yeah, there you go. But I was talking to our listeners.
Oh, right, okay.
So yes, that's what you can do. And something else. Oh yeah, and we have a half-arsed Instagram account as well. So do follow us on there, because things do get put on there. And one day we might be less half-arsed about it. I don't know.
And our friend Colin does a sterling job with the Flickr site too.
Yeah, we've done with Colin now. It's Colin. We've definitely gone with Colin now.
Are we? Have we up
so you weren't see that you weren't on the LFP gathering, were you? So
Did you address the whole Colin issue?
Yes, he laid it to rest.
Yes, it's Colin.
He laid his colon to rest, and it's now Colin.
Yes. And for me, I'm on Twitter as Simon4. I'm on Instagram as Simon Forster Photographic, which is the same name as my website, simonforsterphotographic.co.uk, where you can buy lots of lens caps and things like that. And I keep promising that I'll be doing stuff with large format, and eventually I will. That's just about it. Our music is by Kevin MacLeod, and it's called Two Finger Johnny, and everybody loves it. And that's it. So we will be back in the new year. It's been great to have you with us. It's been great to have Eric join us. And really looking forward to what has to be a better year next year. It's got to be.
It will be.
Yeah,
I have faith.
So with that, hope you enjoy the show, and we'll be back next time. Goodbye.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
And a Happy New Year.